I was working on a project in Korea last year for a public art festival, which my studio was providing designs for. And because of the physical distance between Seoul and New York, we were having video conferences almost every day. And these calls had to happen in odd hours for everyone, either very early in the morning or very late in the night. And one of the main curators of the event was my friend and collaborator, Tae-Yoon Choi, who was also based in New York, like myself, working remotely most of the time. And one day we were complaining, we sat down and started complaining about how our professional lives were happening in odd hours, whereas our personal lives were bound to New York's local time, which created our lives much more complicated. It was almost like we were floating in someplace else in between Seoul and New York and not completely belong to either of those two places. And similarly, in our perceptions, these conference calls were not happening in New York or Seoul's local time, but possibly elsewhen, a unique time space that participants from both places create and share momentarily. Time is based on the movement of planet Earth because we consider that as a constant, the speed of how the Earth rotates itself and around the sun. And it's convenient to think of time in this way because it registers every event into a single and linear metric system. And it's like an assembly line. Your phone calls and email communications and just about anything is bound to this completely linear framework, and we rely on this to define order. And what's really interesting about this linear experience is that it has a very definite beginning and an end. Time on a personal level is unquestionably a finite resource. You can accumulate infinite amount of wealth, but you cannot have infinite life. And I think this is the motivation behind every technological advancement, to maximize our use of time so that we can do more things in less amount of time. And as a result, the contemporary world operates in terms of global synchronization. Things happen in real time, and this semblance of simultaneity is a defining characteristic of value, and it's a synonym to efficiency. But as a human being, it's not uncommon to feel detached from the real time. When you're jet-lagged and can't fall asleep in the middle of the night, or missing a subway stop while daydreaming. These happen when you're by yourself, not syncing perfectly with the GMT, the Greenwich Mean Time. And while Tae-Yoon and I were having conversations like this, what we also realized was that there's no such tool available for us to measure these personal perceptions of different times. These senses are essentially ephemeral. As soon as you look at your watch, then boom, you're back in sync with the GMT. So what we wanted to try was to give form to this personal and ephemeral senses by conceiving a new measurement system that could capture your personal senses. Then perhaps we could create a time device that would display your personal times so that you can interact with it without syncing back to the GMT. Then perhaps we could think about the network of these devices and think about how we negotiate these personal times from person to person. Then perhaps we could create an alternative time system, a consensus time, the bottom-up approach towards deciding what time it is now, as opposed to the top-down approach, where we're basically being told by the geopolitical standards. So in other words, what we set out to do was to create a completely new time zone that is not based on the movement of planet Earth, but based on your personal perceptions of time. And for the past year, we have been conspiring on this subject, and recently we just finished our latest experiment in Los Angeles County Museum of Art, which was also the very first to use custom-made hardware and software to capture the participants' personal movements. And this is the personal timekeeper. It's a simple clock with one button that displays your personal time. And it comes with a little pamphlet that is describing what is encouraged and discouraged while using it for the day. And we handed out these devices to the participants, and then everyone gathered around in the same place at the same time, and we asked them to close their eyes and press and hold the button for a span of time that they thought was a minute, which could actually be anywhere in between 30 seconds to 90 seconds. And then from that point on, everyone's clock would advance in different speed, depending on their perceptual minute, going faster or slower. And everyone wore these devices, and they explored the museum, and we asked them to come back to the place where we started by 3:30 p.m., which of course would no longer be a single point in time for everyone. And while the participants were experiencing this detachment from the GMT for a few hours, we set up a website that displays their personalized times along with their markings of moments, whatever period of time that they thought was significant to them. And then using this subjective history of personalized times and their markings of moments, we initialized a roundtable discussion on how we could possibly model a consensus time, a shared time space among participants that they created together.
So the thing that is interesting about having a device that helps you measure moments is that, and then as soon as I pressed the button, it kind of made me more attentive to what I was experiencing and observing in that moment.
My clock was really fast, super fast. So I decided just to try to do as much things I could, in order to try to see something.
Like, what time were we supposed to be here? You said 3 o'clock, right? 3:30, sorry.
But this consensus time has to be expressed in contemporary time units? I mean, can we just call it like rainy afternoon time?
What we normatize is the waiting parameter.
But I don't need to be synchronous with everyone all the time.
If you've ever been in a relationship, I want to know when you're having a moment, you know? Because
if there was a way of just like stretching it or squeezing it but manipulating it so we can ease back into...
So what if we're looking for something that's not actually there?
No.
So in the current model of GMT, time manifests as a single and uniform backbone to everything that happens. It's the ultimate unit of measurement that everyone has to share. But I think we can take back our ownership of our sense of time as opposed to just simply giving in to the conforming standards of time. And we can create a new logic for keeping track of time. Maybe we selectively synchronize our personalized times with a small number of people, like our friends and families and coworkers, from time to time, and then drift away. This idea of not conforming to the standardized time could feel a little far-fetched, but it's a step towards recognizing and respecting the vastly different and beautiful ways of how we all navigate through this complicated world. Thank you.